Hello and welcome to the session How to Enroll Devices with Jamf Now. This is a dedicated session to Jamf Now, and as I said, to different ways how to enroll devices into Jamf Now. So we're focusing on Jamf Now and the right way and the right situation for each of you to enroll a device into Jamf Now. As Jamf has different products like Jamf Pro and Jamf Now and Jamf School, this session just enrolling devices into Jamf Now and how to manage devices in an SMB environment. Small, medium businesses is Jamf's now core population, you could say. And in this way, I am part of the Jamf business development team here in Amsterdam in Europe. And we focus a lot on strategic ways to work with SMB customers and get them started in the MDM, mobile device management world. Our agenda for today, basically 4 points. Main point, how to enroll the devices into Jamf. Now we have some considerations you should take before getting started. Get yourself ready. We got some tips and tricks I want to talk about. And at the end, obviously, some resources for you all that you can take a look at, write down, take a screenshot, whatever you prefer. I want to bring to your attention that there are 3 more sessions dedicated to Jamf Now. These 3 sessions really go into depth of setting up Jamf Now, how to advance your deployment with Jamf Now by custom profiles or packages to the Mac. So check these out. I'm pretty sure they're recorded as well, so you can check them out at any time, but highly recommend them if you want to get going with Jamf Now. So now let's take a look at our 4 ways that I sorted out. I think these are the 4 most common ways to enroll devices into Jamf Now, and we're going to go really a little bit into depth of each of them. The automated enrollment when you use Apple Business Manager, the Apple Configurator to enroll devices into Business Manager so that we get automated enrollment, open enrollment if you don't want to erase a device or cannot at this point for some reason, and Apple Configurator to and a combination with open enrollment if, for example, you don't have an Apple Business Manager. There's some countries that don't have it, or some organizations that have not applied for it yet. So let's get started with the automated enrollment, and the one we encourage the most. It's the easiest for IT and the easiest for the end user. The devices are in Apple Business Manager. You probably purchased them through an authorized vendor that puts the serial number right into your Apple Business Manager. Business Manager then has an MDM server that is linked to Jamf Now, and so the serial number will show up in Jamf Now, and the devices will show up under auto enrollment in Jamf Now before they're even turned on. So you can now assign them to the right blueprint, and while the device gets set up by the end user and not by IT, and that's why we call it zero-touch deployment. IT is not involved; the end user can do it all. The devices will automatically be in Jamf and automatically configured to the right way. How does that look like? Got a couple screenshots here for you. One is our test Apple Business Manager, where you can see that I have under settings an MDM server called Felix Peters that is linking to my Jamf Now instance. Under devices, I have an iPad that I have linked to this MDM server that is linking to my Jamf Now instance. And you can see here then, you go to auto enrollment and you click on view devices, and there you will find these devices that at that point will show up as not managed until they're turned on and walking through the setup assistant. And once you walk through the setup assistant, they will be managed, they will be viewable under devices, and the blueprint in Jamf Now will be applied. So you just give the device to the end user and they can set up the device. And remember, you can also skip some setup assistant screens if you say terms and conditions should be automatically signed, or you don't want an Apple ID on the device for some reason. You can skip these screens and just continue. Make it a little faster, a little easier for the end user maybe. Another way we have is a combination of Apple Configurator 2 and Apple Business Manager. So why do we need that? If the devices are not automatically in your Apple Business Manager, because you're buying them from a resource that does not have the possibility to add them to Apple Business Manager, or maybe you got them donated, or they're older devices that you were already using, and these devices are not in Business Manager when you signed up to Business Manager. Important part right now, this is for iOS only, so all iOS devices can be added to Apple Business Manager, and important, they will be erased while doing this. So it's not a workflow that you can use if you have to keep the data on the device and if you cannot have the devices into the office hardwired to a Mac. Important, obviously, this is only to be done once. So you will take this iOS device, you link it via a cable to a Mac. That Mac needs to run Apple Configurator 2 as an app. It's free in the App Store. And then you can register the device within Apple Business Manager. And that brings you back to our first way, the automated enrollment. Because once it's in Apple Business Manager, it will show up in Jamf, and the end user can run through the setup themselves. It just doesn't have the out-of-the-box workflow. It has to be touched by IT, and frankly takes some time off IT's plate to get it into Apple Business Manager. What does that look like within Apple Business Manager? Apple Configurator. Apple Configurator will have a screen where you click on once the device is recognized and you selected it, and this screen will then be a wizard to prepare the device. This wizard has a configuration that you select manually, so you click on manually configuration, and then you have to check the box Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager. These devices will then be added to it, and as you can see, supervision will automatically be turned on the device. You do need the Jamf Now URL, and this URL will be found in your Jamf Now instance, also in the help docs that we have. So that is not a problem, but you do need to add it here. You might get an error message. Sometimes happens. You can just ignore that and click on next. And then you will select the right certificate, the jamfcloud.com. And as a next step, you need to create a new organizational identity. And within this organizational identity, you have to enter an Apple ID. Which Apple ID? That's the Apple ID linked to your Apple Business Manager. Obviously, this needs to be an admin or a device manager. So you need to have rights to add a device to Apple Business Manager and configure. This cannot be a private Apple ID, and it can also not be an Apple ID that does not have the correct rights, as I said. So please make sure you have the right Apple ID to get this setting started. You can skip through the next one, just leave it as is, and then we come to the final one where you have to add a mobile configuration profile for your Wi-Fi. Really important here, it needs to be the Wi-Fi you are connected to right now or in the room you are, making sure that the device will show up in Apple Business Manager. Then you click prepare. Please do not touch the iOS device from now on. It will wipe itself probably 2-3 times. It will start up again, and it will end at the hello screen, and then we are back to setting up the device and just walking through the setup assistant. Our third way to get a device into Jamf Now is open enrollment. It's pretty straightforward and pretty easy. You go to and I will show you in a screenshot on the next slide, you go to the Open Enrollment tab within Jamf Now, you check the box that you want to use it, and you get a link or a QR code that you scan that brings you to the website to enroll the device into Jamf Now. This is if you cannot erase the device, or obviously for Macs that are not in Apple Business Manager. As we know, Apple Business Manager cannot add Macs that haven't been in there from the beginning on. So here we always use Open Enrollment. And for Macs that are on Catalina or newer, they also will be supervised automatically it's different to the iOS devices. They can only be supervised with Apple Configurator or with Apple Business Manager. And most of the times these devices obviously are already set up and running, so you can just go to the Safari and type in the URL or scan the code with your camera. Select the blueprint and enroll the device. How does it look like? It looks like this. As I said, what is the tab number 7 on the left side, Open Enrollment. That's what you activate, and then you get a website on the pad that you need to fill in. Click the green button, and then you can get started with enrolling the device. Our fourth method that we have would be a combination of method number 2 and number 3, I would say. Apple Configurator and Open Enrollment. This would probably be the case, as I said in the beginning, if you say, hey, we don't have a business manager right now and I need to get started today. Or you say, I live in a country where there is no Apple Business Manager at that point. Not many left, but some do. Don't have the access right now. So what do? You combine step number 2 and 3. Again, for iOS only, and the devices will be erased. We will not add them to Business Manager, but we will supervise them. And that's why we really want to do this workflow. Supervision gives us more options within Jamf Now on the iOS devices. So you connect them again with a cable to your Mac, then run through Apple Configurator and get the device set up through Setup Assistant, and then you can go to the Open Enrollment page in Jamf, scan the QR code, and enroll the device. I prepared some screenshots for you all. So here we go again to Apple Configurator on your Mac, the device connected via cable. We do not select Add to Apple Business Manager or Apple School Manager this time. We do select Make the device supervised, because that's the main reason we're doing that. We want the iOS device to be supervised within Jamf Now. We have less screens, as you can see, because we don't need to add it to Apple Business Manager. So we hit Prepare, and after the device is been erased, set up new, went to the Setup Assistance screens, then you can go and scan the QR code with device, and it is showing under the Device tab in Jamf Now. The device is now managed. These are the basic explanations, I would say, about the 4 ways to enroll devices into Jamf Now. Let's look at some considerations. I made a table here for each of them, why, what, how, and remember. So let's take a quick look at all of them. If we look at the first one, auto enrollment, where the device is already in Apple Business Manager, it's our preferred way because it saves a lot of time for IT. You purchase from an authorized reseller or vendor, and you already have Apple Business Manager set up, so the device will show under the serial number. You create an MDM server in Apple Business Manager, set up Jamf Now, turn on the device, or let the end user turn on the device, and you are done. Remember, set the right default blueprint within Jamf Now to automate your life even more. And also, you can, within Apple Business Manager, select Jamf as your default MDM server, and therefore have the devices that come in automatically show up in Jamf, and you have to do even less. Our second option was Apple Configurator 2 and Apple Business Manager. Here we want to do that to get the devices supervised and into Apple Business Manager, so we get partly the zero-touch deployment. Obviously, IT does have to touch the device to get it into Apple Business Manager, so it's manually work. The device has to be erased and added or connected via cable to a Mac. And it's not an ideal workflow because obviously we want to take these devices out of IT's hands and make it even faster to set them up. But it's possible, and there are always some situations where you need to do this workflow. Open enrollment, clearly the one when you cannot erase the device or you have a Mac that is not in Apple Business Manager. You scan the QR code, there are no interruptions, your employees can keep working, the device does not have to travel back to the office, it can stay in the field or nowadays probably at home where people work a lot of times. So just make sure you have the right blueprints created and you have open enrollment turned on, and you can get started. Important point, device will not be supervised for the iOS side, so some iOS devices may not receive all the restrictions and settings. Our point, Apple Configurator 2 and Open Enrollment. As I said, what is it? The combination of number 2 and number 3 here. It is for ones who don't have Apple Business Manager, but they need to supervise the device to get all the settings or to get single app on an iOS device. So we need to erase the device with Apple Configurator, scan the QR code, and it's managed. So remember, erase and supervise, and you're ready to go. So for the end of the presentation, we got some tips and tricks for you. So please make sure when you get started, so you don't have to redo all the Apple Configurator configurations, use the right URL from Jamf Now to get the devices added. Really important, we do have some docs, we have support teams that can tell you the URL, so please make sure you use that so you don't have to do double the work. Remember that sometimes Apple Configurator gives you some error messages, but most of the times you can just skip them. So ignore them and continue. There's one point we see a couple times with customers pop up, and that's invalid profile. It happens after you're busy setting up the device while you're in the setup assistant screens. So to avoid invalid profile, please do not touch the device when it's busy with Apple Configurator 2. We don't want to disturb the workflow, we don't want to wake up the device, and therefore please just let it go, leave it alone, and it will do its work. We can also see invalid profile happen if the device is not assigned to the right MDM server within Apple Business Manager. So when it comes through Apple Configurator into Apple Business Manager, make sure you move it over and assign it to Jamf as an MDM server. It should show up, so please do a synchronization there and then get started with the device. And last but not least, obviously, certificates and tokens need to be in sync or up to date. So make sure everything is set up or is renewed if needed to be. One more thing on the tips and tricks. Please use a generic Apple ID when you set up APNS, Apple Push Notification Service, and Apple Business Manager. If you use a private or personal Apple ID, or you use an Apple ID that is, for example, your email address, your work email address, and you leave work, this Apple ID needs to be used every year to renew the certificate and the tokens. You cannot use a different Apple ID every time. It always has to be the one you used at first when setting everything up. So please make sure a generic Apple ID is used. Otherwise, we have to re-enroll all the devices, and everything you have done has to be redone. When you select Setup Assistant screens to be skipped, please do not skip location services. If you live in California, then you can skip it, it's fine. The basic configuration always takes Los Angeles time zone, and therefore if you are outside of California in a different time zone, please don't skip this and let the end user select it so they get the right time zone and don't get confused. The last two, really important. iOS backups cannot be reused if the device did not have management on it before. So if you make a backup of a device that was not managed before by Jamf, you run it through Apple Configurator, add it to Apple Business Manager, get it all set up through automated enrollment, and then play a backup on the device, the MDM profile will be deleted again and your whole enrollment was done for nothing. So please make sure you don't use that backup on the device again. What you can do, you can sign in with the Apple ID and then sync your photos and contacts. That is obviously possible, but please don't use a backup. If you do need to use a backup, you have to use it on a different device. Then it is possible, but not on the same device. Also, if you add a device through Apple Configurator to Apple Business Manager, there's a 30-day grace period where the end user on the device could remove the MDM profile. The device will be unmanaged, and you have to go through the whole process again. So please keep the device for 30 days, or make sure your end users don't delete their MDM profile for 30 days. Doesn't matter if they click on day 1 or on day 29, you have to do it all again. One more thing, as you probably saw during WWDC, there was a video showing a Mac being enrolled into Apple Business Manager with an iPhone after it already has been purchased and wasn't part of Business Manager before. Right now, it's not live, so nothing we can show, nothing we can present to you, but we're really excited for it. It's going to be huge, going to be a small game changer to finally have the option to add Mac devices to Apple Business Manager after they have been purchased. So really looking forward to it, but that's probably end of the year. But as soon as we know more, we will get into it, we will add it and let you all know and give you the chance to use it. So to finish up, here are the resources. I'm not sure, take a screenshot, write them down. We probably can provide them to you as well. If you ask for them, you can just reach out. Really good information, really good notes. And also, as you can see, the last one is the video from WWDC. So take a look at it. And with that, thank you for listening. Thank you for taking the time. I hope you learned something new. Maybe it was a refresher for you, but maybe you take something home with it from it. And thank you very much.